At the wrap party, the top star and the innocent girl announced their relationship. He stood in front of me with a smile. "Sylvia, don't make a scene. She's just debuted, her nature is simple, you can't bully her. I can't bear to let her go through the rumors like we did back then, I want to give her a title." After a brief moment of shock and suffocation, I sobered up. Since that's the case, I don't want him anymore. I felt the vibrating phone in my bag. My cousin Catherine sent a message. "The marriage partner I've arranged for you is waiting in the parking lot. He says he doesn't mind if you have someone else in your heart." Before the wrap party, he and I were still intimately close. Evan gently bit my ear, his expression infatuated and fervent. He was always fascinated by my body. Today was even more intense. By the end, my legs were weak. At that moment, he was sitting contentedly at the head of the bed, smoking. Through the haze, his languid and somewhat indifferent eyes appeared blurred. "You should go back." I thought he was urging me to go home as usual. Because I was afraid of being photographed by nosy people, I never stayed overnight at his place. But then he added, "I mean, don't come here anymore." I was stunned, turned around, and looked at him in confusion. Evan has a pair of amorous peach blossom eyes. At this moment, they were smiling, but inexplicably made me feel a chill all over. I could probably guess why, because of Mia, the actress who co-starred with him in the last play. Actually, even before the play was finished, someone had reminded me that Evan took special care of Mia. At that time, I knew he treated her differently. Evan is naturally aloof and indifferent to everyone. Only to me did he show a bit more warmth and tenderness. I had never seen him take such care of any newcomer. That newcomer is completely different from me. When I debuted, I was called the Red Rose of the entertainment industry, passionate, bright, and charming. Mia, on the other hand, is called the White Moonlight of the entertainment industry by fans. Her appearance isn't outstanding in the entertainment circle, but she has a pair of clean and lively eyes. The first time I saw her was when I visited Evan on set. At that time, she was filming a kissing scene with Evan. I watched the entire scene. At first, Mia was very awkward and shy. But Evan is very skilled at kissing. Under his lead, Mia quickly became immersed. The two of them kissed passionately under the camera, so engrossed that they didn't even hear the director call cut. When it ended, Mia was panting heavily, leaning against Evan's chest. Evan slightly curled his lips, indulgently and helplessly patting her back to help her catch her breath. I thought, if the 20-year-old Sylvia encountered such a scene, she would definitely make a fuss. But the 28-year-old Sylvia wouldn't. I couldn't make a scene. There were eyes everywhere watching Evan and me. Once I made a fuss, it would be a devastating blow to both of our careers. The smoke choked me, and I suddenly pulled away from my memories. I put on my clothes and looked at him seriously. There were still bite marks on Evan's neck from earlier. "You won't make a scene, right? You should understand that with our current status, it's better to part ways gracefully." "I won't. There's nothing to make a scene about." When I saw Mia's timid eyes, like those of a fairy tale elf, I knew that my entanglement with Evan was about to end. Seeing me so sensible, Evan softened his tone. He got out of bed barefoot, held me in his arms, and rested his head on my shoulder, just like countless times before. "You really understand the big picture. Actually, I'm quite reluctant to part with you. But Mia minds your existence, so we should contact each other less in the future." He held me tighter, but the words from his mouth became more ruthless. 8 years of love and hate had worn away all the beauty from when we first met. I couldn't even tell if what I felt for him now was love or just unwillingness. Unwilling to accept that after 8 years together, I couldn't get an official announcement. Unwilling that after so many years, he still maintained his single persona. Unwilling that he abandoned me for a newcomer he had only known for half a year. I pushed him away and stared at the cigarette in his hand. Then, I snatched it and, before he could react, pressed the burning end onto his thigh. "You." He grimaced in pain but stubbornly didn't dodge, enduring the burning pain on his flesh. These years of struggling in the entertainment industry have indeed made me restrain all my sharpness, to the point that even Evan thought I was just a pushover who would swallow my anger. I looked up at him. Contactless? Unless you quit the industry, we'll definitely cross paths. I leisurely threw the cigarette in my hand into the trash can. My eyes were actually sore and teary, but I'm someone who values face more than anything. I wouldn't shed tears in front of someone who betrayed me. Outside the window, thunder was rumbling continuously. At that moment, Evan's phone rang. It was Mia calling. Evan subconsciously glanced at me. Seeing that I didn't react much, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. In front of me, he answered the call. What's wrong, baby? I'm so scared, I'm afraid of thunder. Mia's voice was tearful. Don't be afraid, I'll come to accompany you right away. After saying that, he picked up his keys and was about to leave. Before going out, he didn't forget to instruct me to leave quickly, afraid that reporters might capture something. I nodded. After he left, I efficiently cleaned up all traces of myself in this villa. By the time I finished, it was already getting dark. Only then did I have time to check my phone. A group chat became lively. The group was full of Evan's buddies. They saw a set of photos secretly taken by entertainment reporters. In the photos, the two were walking side by side, in intimate poses. There were even a few kissing photos. The trending topic was, shocking big news, top star and newcomer actress are about to get together, is it old love or new love? This group was one I had shamelessly insisted on joining. The people inside were usually very warm to me, calling me sister-in-law one after another. At that time, the group messages were still flooding in. Sister-in-law, these must be accidents, Evan wouldn't betray you. Yeah, it must be the angle that makes it look intimate. That Mia looks plain and simple, how can she compare to sister-in-law? Shortly after this series of comments, Evan spoke up. He directly said, Sylvia, don't be despicable. After he rudely retorted me like that, the group fell into a strange silence. Then, Evan brought Mia into the group and carefully introduced her. This is your real sister-in-law, don't mistake her. With this scene, the group instantly fell dead silent. No one spoke. It wasn't until Evan mentioned me a second time that I finally saw the group messages. Clearly, I hadn't said anything, yet he vented all his anger on me. Sylvia, is it interesting for you to entangle like this? I've already made it clear to you, why are you so shameless? Mia replied with a aggrieved crying emoji. Then, in a muffled tone, she said, hello everyone, I'm Evan's girlfriend, his only girlfriend. She emphasized the word only. I had just finished packing and was still panting from exhaustion, but I couldn't tolerate this. I directly addressed Evan, you're really a toad judging the world. Me entangling you? What kind of daydream are you having? They've been calling me sister-in-law for years, it's normal that they didn't change immediately. Who would have thought you'd cheat? Also, you scumbag and that are a perfect match, I suggest you lock it down. Mia didn't speak again after that. A minute later, there were one or two comments in the group from Evan's close buddies. So, Evan, did you really cheat? It's not just a rumor? It's not cheating, Sylvia and I have already broken up. Evan didn't reply to my 3 messages but responded to this one. I didn't plan to let him off just like that. I don't know either, this morning we were still intimate, and tonight he's seamlessly connected with someone else. A few seconds after sending that message, the group was disbanded. I found it somewhat speechless. Probably afraid that Mia would be upset if she knew. At the wrap party, Evan held Mia's hand in front of all the reporters and media, announcing their relationship. The scene was boiling with excitement, and the crowd was surging. I lowered my baseball cap and blended into the crowd. Under the spotlight on stage, Evan and Mia's hands were firmly clasped. He occasionally turned his head to look at Mia. This look was all too familiar to me. Every time we were intimate, his eyes held a warmth and possessiveness that only I could understand. And now, the way he looked at Mia was the same, so hot it could melt ice and snow. Thank you all for witnessing our love. If nothing unexpected happens, we will get married after the new year. Evan's voice came through the microphone. The audience erupted in exclamations. Flashlights connected into a sea, bustling with activity. I saw Mia looking up at him, her eyes red, filled with admiration and worship. He wants to marry Mia, but in the 8 years we were together, he never said he wanted to marry me, not even during the passionate period. Yet, they had only known each other for half a year. I continued to lower my hat and turned to leave the scene. I murmured softly, "It's really unfair, not fair at all." At this moment, my phone popped up a notification about the trending topic, Evan and Mia's relationship announced. This news had already rushed to the top. In the accompanying picture, Evan and Mia were tightly embracing. So, it turns out he wasn't unable to announce a relationship, it was just that I couldn't make him give up his single persona. It turns out he knew that spreading rumors was bad, but he still coldly watched me being attacked by his girlfriend fans, saying I was being taken advantage of. Over 8 years, we both grew in fame, but when we both reached our peaks, we parted ways. The wind in the parking lot carried grit that stung my face. It was only then that I realized I was crying. But the big star Sylvia has to save face. My first reaction was to look around to see if there were any reporters secretly taking photos, then I quickly wiped away my tears and got into the car. My phone was still vibrating in my bag. It was a message from my cousin. "Ethan has been thinking about entering the entertainment industry recently, he wants to sign you. Consider it. Ethan is my marriage partner. He and I used to be very close playmates. But later, some things happened, and I fled home, coming to Shanghai alone to make a living. In the 8 years, every time I went home, I deliberately avoided him. Thus, due to my intentional avoidance, we hadn't seen each other for 8 years. I couldn't hide anymore. I replied to my cousin, "Okay, I'll sign. My current contract is under Evan's studio." Actually, with my current status, the pay Evan signed me for was no longer appropriate. But I never made a fuss because I always thought we would eventually get married, so I didn't bother. But now that we've separated, there's no need for me to stay in Evan's studio anymore. The contract is about to expire. During this last period, the studio didn't arrange any more acting jobs for me. Even the variety shows were all cancelled for me. I don't know if Evan was deliberately making things difficult for me. The variety shows I was dropped from were taken over by Mia. Originally, with her status, she wasn't qualified to be on that variety show. I was thus shelved for several months. On the last 2 days before the contract expired, Evan sent me a message: "The lessons you've learned during this time are enough. If you target Mia again in the future, I will destroy you." Destroy me? Seeing this message, I was a bit dazed. I still remember when we first got together, I was forced by the company to accompany clients for drinks. When I was drugged and about to be violated, it was Evan who burst in. He was beaten by the bodyguards until his head was bleeding, but he still protected me tightly behind him. Before I completely fainted, I heard him holding me tightly, crying sadly. He said, don't be afraid, I won't let anyone bully you again." But now, the person who vowed to protect me can easily say things like "I will destroy you." I didn't reply to his message but contacted Ethan instead. "I'm free these days, we can arrange a time to meet and talk about the signing." "Okay." The person on the other end replied instantly. Just as I was about to turn off my phone, the message notification sounded again. It was from my agent Lydia. "Sylvia, are you ready for the renewal?" "Lydia, I don't plan to renew." "Ah? Does Evan know?" "He knows." Lydia didn't think much more about it. After all, Evan and Mia had announced their relationship. My departure as the ex would be good for everyone. Lydia thought that Evan must also highly agree. But Lydia still felt a bit regretful. "Sigh, how did you two come to this point?" "Because people's hearts are fickle." 2 days later, I met Ethan at a coffee shop. After not seeing him for a long time, he no longer had the youthful and immature look of the past. Now, he looked every bit the superior, wearing a suit and a low-key Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, a style that Evan had once mocked as old-fashioned and conservative. Are you doing well recently? I spoke first. Ethan looked at me a bit dazedly, then smiled. He didn't answer my question but placed a document in front of me. Take a look, if there are no objections, you can sign it. I looked down, it was the contract to sign me. I was a bit speechless. This guy was still so taciturn, like a monk with few desires. But it was this person who had his phone full of secretly taken photos of me playing the piano. I carefully read the contract and found that the price offered to me was much higher than the market rate. This price is a bit high, I explained to him. You deserve it, he suddenly chuckled. I was a bit dazed. Looking at Ethan's face, I murmured in a very low voice, Ethan, do you believe in substitute literature? He seemed not to hear and continued to lower his head to drink coffee. After finishing the coffee, I originally planned to go home. But when I got closer, I smelled alcohol on Ethan. Earlier, when we were farther apart, I only vaguely smelled it and thought it was an illusion. After all, Ethan never drank before. Did you drink? Yes, I'm happy. Ethan looked up at me, his eyes fiery and burning hot. He looked as if he wanted to engrave me in his mind. I didn't say anything but silently took him to the hotel. Ethan seemed to be even more drunk, leaning on me to barely stand. But at that moment, a force pushed Ethan away hard. I turned around and met Evan's angry face. Are you that thirsty? Just separated from me and you can't wait to book a room with another man. Don't forget, you're an artist under my banner. If something happens to you, it will implicate me. I quickly helped Ethan steady himself again, then coldly looked at Evan. Don't worry, Mr. Evan, I'm no longer an artist under your banner. Evan suddenly laughed. He sneered, as if he had seen through me. Don't pretend, don't I know you? You think by finding a man to provoke me, you can make me come back to you? Stop dreaming. At this time, Mia, who had been standing behind Evan, came out looking confused and helpless. Her eyes were always moist, as if she had just cried. Sister Sylvia, don't be angry, Evan didn't mean to say such harsh words. He just cares too much about the studio's reputation. While saying this, she gently tugged at Evan's sleeve, as if soothing a raging beast. Evan finally calmed down. He snorted coldly and turned his head away from me. Mia looked at me again, her eyes full of grievance and innocence. Sister Sylvia, I know you have feelings for Evan, but we are already together. Please bless us and stop coveting Evan. I'm just a newcomer, I can't compete with you, but I hope you can let us go. Her voice was soft and sweet, but what she said made me very embarrassed. I sneered and stared directly into Mia's eyes. Entangling? Stop confusing right and wrong here. I wouldn't want a cheating scumbag. If you like him, go ahead. Mia was choked, her face turning pale and then red. The next second, she burst into tears and ran away covering her face. Evan frowned at me but didn't immediately chase after Mia. Instead, he looked at me with a complex expression that I couldn't understand. There's no need, Sylvia. If you don't mind, we can still be friends. I'll continue to take care of you, like before. Ethan had been quietly leaning on me all this time. In the shadows, Ethan's eyes were frighteningly clear. Mr. Evan, Sylvia is now my signed artist. I'll take care of her, you don't need to worry. When Ethan suddenly spoke, Evan responded, You? I've never heard of you, just someone from who knows where. What makes you say such big words? Then, Evan turned to me, his eyes surging with emotions I couldn't understand. Sylvia, don't just sign with some small company to spite me. In the past, all your resources were given by me. Really? I interrupted him, my gaze cold. 8 years ago, Evan was so poor he could only live in a basement. Because of his straightforward personality, he offended people and was kicked out by his agent. It was I who gave him a hand and recommended him to a director in the industry. Later, we warmed each other and encouraged each other. Once, you used the rumors with me to rise to fame, and I relied on your later popularity to break out. It was just mutual benefit. I interrupted his self-righteous fantasy. The air in the hotel suddenly became chilling. Evan's face turned pale under the lights. Ethan became groggy from drinking and rested his head on my shoulder. I patted Ethan's shoulder. "Mr. Evan, as you can see, we have things to attend to." Evan's gaze fell on Ethan's hand on my shoulder, and he suddenly laughed. It was a nearly obsessive and sinister laugh. "Fine, Sylvia, you're great." After saying that, he turned and left. His leather shoes made hurried steps on the floor, as if being chased by something, looking somewhat disheveled and flustered. A week later, a trending topic emerged out of nowhere. Top star's former rumored girlfriend secretly meets a mysterious man late at night, suspected to be a sugar daddy. The accompanying picture was a blurry image of me supporting Ethan into the hotel. Looking at this trending topic, I felt a surge of irritation. Meeting Evan indeed brought no good. It's unlucky. There were many comments online about this. Is the ex-girlfriend also going to announce a relationship? She licked Evan for so many years, and now that he announced, she's broken. Who is the person who went to the hotel with her? I originally didn't want to pay attention to these groundless rumors. Over the years, I've gotten used to it. There are always many people who misunderstand me. But at that time, Evan said that haters are also fans and told me not to mind those rumors. But thinking that this time it involved Ethan, I decided to clarify the facts. I issued a statement stating that I had already signed with Ethan's company. That day was just a normal work meeting. I also released the hotel's surveillance footage. In the footage, after I took Ethan to the room, I left in less than 5 minutes. It was clear that nothing happened. After the clarification, the public opinion calmed down a bit. But there were still many of Evan's girlfriend fans who spoke ill of me online. Strangely, the girlfriend fans didn't hate Mia. In Lydia's words, Mia has a harmless face that appeals to the audience, while I look like a seductive vixen, not liked by the same sex. After seeing the trending topic, Ethan took the initiative to contact me. "I'll handle this matter. I've already clarified it. It's not enough. It's obvious that someone is deliberately manipulating this behind the scenes. I can't let you be bullied." I wanted to refuse, thinking it would be too troublesome for him, but his tone was very firm, and I couldn't refuse. That evening, I saw Evan downstairs in the neighborhood. Because he was afraid of being recognized, he covered himself tightly, but I still recognized him at a glance. I spoke irritably. "What are you here for?" Evan smiled with his eyes curved. "You still have such a bad temper? No one can stand you except me." I rolled my eyes at him. Evan continued, "Come back and renew the contract, I'll help you handle it. I won't let them you anymore." "Oh? I've been for so many years, and now you say you'll help me?" Meeting my sarcastic gaze, Evan uncomfortably avoided my eyes. He cleared his throat. "You don't need to keep holding on to the past. Although I've decided to separate from you, we still have feelings. I won't really ignore you." I laughed out loud, almost to the point of tears. Does he think he's a great lover? Isn't he moved by himself? "You help me, won't your little girlfriend be angry?" I said sarcastically. "She won't, as long as I explain it to her properly, she won't mind. Don't have such a big prejudice against her, she's very good." "Is that so? What if this incident was directed by her?" "Impossible." Evan's voice rose a few degrees. I didn't say anything more and silently turned to leave. Evan called after me, "Sylvia, don't contact that man again." "None of your business." I stopped and cursed. After not seeing him for a few days, how did Evan become more annoying? Hearing my response, Evan was stunned. He widened his eyes in disbelief. The next day, the Shin Group issued an announcement declaring that I was the first artist signed by Shin. Shin would tailor a series of resources for me. Once the announcement was made, the internet exploded. Shin Group, oh my god. Shin Group is actually entering the entertainment industry? Why is it Sylvia? Does Sylvia have some incredible family background? Everyone became very interested in my background. Immediately after, the Zhou Group's official website forwarded Shin's announcement. Pleasant cooperation. With this, what was there not to understand? I am the eldest daughter of the Zhou family. Shin is a globally renowned enterprise, and the Zhou family is no less. The Zhou family has an unparalleled background in the business world, owning multiple listed companies. Since childhood, the two families have been very close. If I hadn't run away, perhaps Ethan and I would already be married. On the other side, Evan finally believed that I really didn't renew the contract. Lydia acted as a spy and promptly reported the situation to me. You don't know, Evan was so angry that he almost dismantled the table. Saying this, she also sent a video from a sneaky angle. In the video, Evan was completely stunned. He asked the assistant over and over again, she really didn't renew? Is she so heartless, planning to cut ties with me? She really signed with another company. She's the eldest daughter of the Zhou family? How is that possible? Wasn't she born into an ordinary family? The coffee cup in Evan's hand almost slipped. His face looked extremely bad. At this moment, Mia came in with a box of fruit. Seeing Evan's state, she pouted aggrievedly, Evan, what's wrong with you? If she wants to leave, let her leave, keeping her would be so awkward. Evan didn't answer, just stared blankly at his phone. Mia followed his gaze and saw that the phone screen was on the chat interface with me. Evan had sent me many messages, but I didn't reply to any. For a moment, Mia's face almost twisted. You. But Evan still seemed oblivious, as if his world had turned gray. Mia sighed, Evan, I know you're a person who values emotions and loyalty. She left without saying goodbye, and I understand that you're upset. Mia's eyes were full of concern, so considerate and tolerant. Evan finally reacted. He turned his head to look at Mia, but his eyes were confused and struggling. You go out, I want to be alone for a while, Evan said softly. Mia nodded silently and reluctantly left. After everyone left, Evan leaned back on the sofa and closed his eyes. 2 days later, Ethan told me he had found the mastermind behind it. I had actually already guessed who it was. As expected, it was Mia. Mia was never the simple and innocent girl Evan described. From the first time I saw her, I knew she wasn't simple. She was too much like me in my student days, like me before I was tainted by the entertainment industry. Whether it was makeup, dressing, behavior, or interests, she was like the old me. So, I knew Evan would fall for her. It was foreseeable that Evan would transfer his affections to Mia. She was the successful substitute, the new favorite, while I was the forgotten old love. Ethan asked me, how do you want to handle it? Then make it public. Let all the truth appear in the public eye. Half an hour later, countless trending topics emerged. Mia interferes in relationship, is the mistress, Evan seamlessly connects with Mia, Mia sets up a scheme to frame Sylvia, Shen and Zhou groups jointly sue Mia. For a moment, the entire internet was shocked. Netizens were running around to eat melons. Soon after, partners who had collaborations with Mia also came forward to terminate their contracts with her. For a time, the internet was boiling. I could imagine how collapsed Mia was. Not long after, I received her call. Why did you do this? Why are you so ruthless? Her voice was sharp and piercing. I slightly moved the phone away. That's what you deserve. Mia exploded even more. Her voice was no longer the weak and pitiful tone of the past, now it was full of resentment. Aren't you just resentful that Evan abandoned you because of me? You're just bullying others with your power. Think what you want. Hearing my indifferent response, Mia became even more uncomfortable. Her breathing became heavy. I also heard Lydia's anxious voice from the other end. It's over, Mia, all the dramas you participated in have been taken down, and even the movie you were about to shoot has kicked you out of the cast. After I left, Lydia was required to be Mia's agent. Evan said externally that he wanted to make Mia the second me. Ah, how dare they, I'll tell Evan, he'll help me. No, Evan's studio has also announced the termination of your contract. No, impossible, he likes me, he wouldn't treat me like this. I couldn't listen anymore and hung up the phone. Evan actually had no choice. The cheating incident being exposed had a great impact on him. Many fans started to unfollow and step back. The trending topic "Evan cheats with Mia" climbed to the top step by step. Even the brands he endorsed in the past issued apology letters and termination notices. During this period, Evan persistently called me, but I still didn't answer. At this moment, I was standing in the exclusive elevator of the Shin Group, the mirror reflecting my newly permed big wavy golden curls, looking charming and graceful. When the elevator door opened, I saw Ethan standing there waiting for me. We smiled at each other. I once liked Ethan. When I first experienced love, he was my ideal type. But later, I discovered a secret. Because during those years, my parents were abroad, and I was entrusted to the Shin family for care. Almost every night, Ethan would secretly sneak into my bedroom to watch me. He didn't do anything, just watched obsessively. Moreover, many small items I had discarded were collected by him. His secret love was surging and overwhelming, scaring me, an inexperienced girl, into fleeing. At that time, I only had one thought: I had encountered a pervert. As a result, the budding love I had for Ethan died prematurely. I didn't dare to tell anyone about this, it was too embarrassing to mention. I was afraid of Ethan, but I fell in love with Evan, who looked very similar to him. If Mia was my substitute, then Evan was Ethan's substitute. Ethan's gaze was still fiery, as if he wanted to devour me. "Sylvia, you've come back after all." I turned my head away. "You sent Mia into the entertainment industry, right?" "I did send her in, but I couldn't control Evan's change of heart." I sighed. "You scare me like this." "That's why I fled from Ethan. He was too unscrupulous in achieving his goals." Ethan lowered his head, his eyes full of hurt and loneliness. "Don't be afraid of me, okay? You think I'm unscrupulous. In the 8 years you were away, I only did one thing. Watching you love him drove me crazy. But I didn't target him, otherwise, how could he have been safe until now?" At this moment, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Lydia, a video. Evan was squatting at the villa's entrance, looking dazed. The cigarette between his fingers burned to his hand, but he seemed unaware. The tie he was wearing was the birthday gift I gave him 3 years ago. "Sylvia." Ethan suddenly held my hand, his eyes full of pleading. "Come back to the old house with me tomorrow, my parents miss you very much." I suddenly smiled. Okay. When I went back, the Shin family was all there. Just like back then, they were warm to me. Grandma Shin held my hand, crying uncontrollably. "It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back." My parents also rushed back from abroad. I wasn't their only child. I knew they each had their own families outside. I was just a product of their marriage alliance. Since I fled, my parents thought I was disgraceful and repeatedly forced me to go back and marry Ethan. I refused. In a fit of anger, they cut off my living expenses and hardly ever contacted me. Therefore, I became increasingly distant from them. But now, facing me, their eyes were red. "You've lost weight, didn't you take good care of yourself outside? Mom thought you didn't want to see us anymore." Did I resent them? Yes. But now, I don't feel anything anymore. I could also force a polite smile at them. "You are my parents, how could I not want to see you?" These words were full of politeness and distance. My parents became even more regretful. But it was too late. My relationship with them probably couldn't be repaired in this lifetime. Ethan sensed my discomfort. He stood in front of me, just like back then when I found out that my parents each had their own families outside, and collapsed in tears. He used his small body to shield me from all the gossip. With his still unchanged clear voice, he loudly accused my parents. "You don't deserve to be her parents. You didn't fulfill your responsibilities as parents, always leaving the child to the nanny. You don't like Sylvia, but I like Sylvia." The boy's oath was sincere and passionate. At this moment, Ethan stood in front of me again. The 30-year-old Ethan had the aura of a superior, uncle and aunt. "You'd better not cry, you're making Sylvia uncomfortable." This scene overlapped with the one from the past. my heart skipped a beat. I couldn't tell what it was, but something quietly broke open and sprouted in my heart. After staying at the Shin family's old house for a few days, I left. On the way to the company, I saw Evan squatting on the ground halfway. His eyes were bloodshot, looking at me blankly. Then he suddenly stood up, his body swayed, and it took a few seconds to steady himself. "Sylvia, do you hate me that much?" Evan's voice was hoarse, but it didn't sound like a question, it was more like a plea. Evan wanted to take a step forward but was stopped by my gaze. "Stay away from me, I don't want to be involved in a scandal with a disreputable artist like you." Evan's face turned pale, and his body trembled slightly. He stumbled back a few steps and leaned against the wall behind him. "Am I so unforgivable?" "You're wrong, I didn't intend to make things this bad. It was your little girlfriend who kept pushing me." I spoke coldly. When Mia was mentioned, Evan's face twisted. He gritted his teeth. "I was deceived by her. I didn't expect she would really hire trolls to slander you privately." "You were deceived, you deserve it." After saying that, I turned to leave. Evan wanted to come over and stop me, but at that moment, a car drove up and stopped in front of us. The door opened, and Ethan got out. Seeing Evan, Ethan's eyes were sinister. "Mr. Evan, Sylvia is my fiancée. If you continue to entangle her, I'll make sure you can't survive in the entertainment industry." Evan pursed his lips and looked at Ethan. His eyes were full of jealousy and unwillingness. Originally, he didn't know Ethan, thinking he was just a pretty boy who knew how to please women. But later, when the Shin group spoke out, Evan learned who Ethan was. Because of this, Evan regretted it. "Sylvia and I have 8 years of feelings, she loves me very much." "How could she be willing to marry you?" "Love you? Love a cheating scumbag like you? Is there no mirror at home?" I couldn't help but retort to Evan. Ethan chuckled lightly, looking at me with satisfaction. Evan's shoulders suddenly slumped, as if he had lost all vitality. Then, Ethan pulled me into the car. Through the car window, I saw Evan standing there, looking at us with eyes full of pain. His figure became smaller and smaller. Ethan spoke softly, "Don't be unhappy, with me here in the future, no one will be able to hurt you again." I nodded. Spending time with him these days, I found that I was no longer afraid of Ethan. He was mature and steady, extremely restrained and devoted to me. It was hard not to be moved by him. I suddenly realized that for so many years, I had been avoiding my feelings for Ethan. It wasn't just because of his fanatical and persistent secret love, but more importantly, to rebel against my family's control over me. Ethan was just a tool for my rebellion. But deep down, I did rely on and like him. "Ethan, thank you for still being willing to accompany me," I said softly. "You never need to say thank you to me, I'm willing to do anything for you." On the other side, Evan didn't give up. To please me, he spoke out online, saying he was deceived by Mia and listed many ambiguous messages where Mia had deliberately seduced him. For a time, Mia was pushed to the forefront again. She successfully earned the title of Mistress Sister. Evan also became synonymous with scumbag. But he didn't care at all. He started appearing downstairs at my house every day. As long as I opened the window, I could see his haggard figure. Because of this, we were on the trending topic several times again. He also had people send me various small gifts that I had mentioned but he never took to heart, along with letters of repentance. But these could no longer move me. It wasn't until his studio was bankrupted by Ethan, who couldn't tolerate it anymore, that he finally stopped. Ethan helped me connect with a big shot in the industry. After passing the audition, I joined the crew. On the day of the opening ceremony, Mia's post mentioning me went viral. She was now in a state where everyone was against her and she was half retired from the industry. She knelt in front of the camera, crying her heart out, apologizing to me. She admitted to bribing paparazzi to take secret photos and deliberately interfering in my relationship with Evan. Finally, she shouted at the camera, "Sister Sylvia, I was just unwilling. Why am I just the daughter of a nanny while you are so high above? Please spare me, please make Shen and Joe Group spare me." At this moment, I finally understood why she could imitate me. Because she was the daughter of the nanny. She often came to the Zhou family with the nanny. At this time, the assistant handed me a thermos. There was a sticky note on it with Ethan's strong handwriting: "Don't drink cold things, you're not convenient these days." I smiled. Also at this time, I suddenly saw Evan mixed in the crowd. He was wearing a wide-brimmed baseball cap, with a mask covering his face. His eyes looking at me were like looking at an unattainable dream. The director knocked the clapperboard with a click. I raised the corners of my lips and no longer looked at him. This time, I was no longer someone else's red rose but the brilliant sunflower in my own life. In the evening, Ethan came to pick me up. The night wind carried falling cherry blossoms. I tiptoed and kissed Ethan on the face. "After filming this play, let's go see the aurora." He was stunned, his face gradually turning red, just like the boy who secretly watched me back then. And this time, I no longer fled, no longer settled. Finally, after 8 years of misplaced love, I found my own love.